friendly. This decadent, rich chocolate cake is going to make all your dreams come true. So firstly, let's work on the dry mix. Into a bowl, add the almond flour. Next, the sugar substitute. I'm using stevia just because I prefer it, but you can use any other sweetener you wish. Next, I've got some cacao powder. You've seen me use this a lot in my keto recipes. It's much better than regular cocoa and it has a far richer flavor. Next, add in some baking powder and whisk the dry ingredients well. Next, add in the unsalted softened butter, a drizzle of vanilla extract. Next, add in the eggs along with some unsweetened almond milk. Again, you can change up the nut milks as you prefer. Mix well until combined, and you want this looking like any other regular cake batter, thick and creamy. This batter will be lumpy though, but don't worry about that too much. It's just because of the almond flour and the way it clumps. Now this makes 2 cakes, so pour half the batter into each cake tin, obviously using the same size springform cake tin, and line them with baking paper. Place them in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit for 30 to 35 minutes. Remove from the oven and leave to cool slightly, and remove from the tins and allow them to cool completely. While we're waiting, let's get on to our frosting. Into a mixing bowl, add the softened cream cheese, softened unsalted butter, and again a sugar substitute, in my case stevia. Add in some cacao powder and finally pour in a small amount of full fat heavy cream. Whip the frosting until it's light and creamy. I'm using a stand mixer, but you can do this by hand. It will just take you a bit longer. To assemble, I place one of my cakes onto the cake stand and dollop some cream cheese frosting on top and spread evenly. For this middle layer, you want it pretty thick, so don't be afraid to add more than what will go on the top or the sides. Now place the second cake on top, push down slightly, and then repeat the same process for the top. Smoothing out all sides, but this time put the frosting on the sides and go around the cakes. Now I'm not the world's greatest cake decorator. I'll leave that to Cakes by Chopper or Nick from the Scran Line. So it doesn't look perfect, but it's not meant to be either. But get it as smooth as you can using a palette knife. Finally, I'm adding in no added sugar, keto-friendly chocolate chips around the rim of the cake. You can buy these online. Yes, they are more expensive, but it's worth it. Next, I melt down some of the same chocolate chips and drizzle it all over the top of the cake. And this gives it another great look, and it will fool any chocolate cake connoisseur into thinking it's the real thing. Now slice into the cake and behold in its low-carb beauty. It's rich, moist like a mud cake, and the chocolate flavor is so good. Sure, you aren't gonna eat the whole thing, but it's a real treat for guests coming over and something to impress your keto low-carb buddies with.
Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make a super simple blueberry muffin recipe. And the best part about this, in my opinion, is that the base recipe is really great to transform into anything. So you could just like swap in the berries and even add spices and change up the flavors. But we're going to go with some blueberries today because that's delicious. So first thing we want to do is melt 1/4 cup butter in a microwave safe bowl. Perfect, that was 30 seconds. And now really all you're gonna do is add the remaining ingredients except the blueberries. We're gonna add those in at the end and we're gonna combine. So we have 1/4 cup of erythritol. This is granular and it won't be an issue. We're gonna add that in. We have 2 teaspoons of baking powder we're gonna add in. We have 1 cup of almond flour. We're gonna do 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. 20 drops of liquid stevia. So here, as you can see, I'm using erythritol and stevia because we like to cut back on the erythritol, less digestive issues. So swapping in stevia, even monk fruit sweetener, is a great option. That's good. And we're gonna crack into 2 eggs. And then we have 2 tablespoons of almond milk. You could use any milk alternative you want, flax, cashew, coconut, and then we are going to combine. So at this point, you can fold in your blueberries. You could even scoop the batter into the muffin tin and then top with the blueberries, because just a warning, they might sink if you just mix them in and they're all at the bottom, and then you'll just have all the blueberries at the bottom of your cooked muffin. So we're just gonna actually fold these in pretty lightly. Little mix. My favorite part, which is putting the mixture into the muffin tin. We have parchment paper lined muffin cups. So this is a great option you can get in the baking section of a grocery store. You don't need to spray them or anything. They won't stick because it is parchment paper. And this is gonna make 8 muffins. So we're just gonna evenly distribute this mixture throughout all 8. These aren't gonna rise significantly, so I'm gonna give each one 1 scoop, and then I'm gonna go back around and do another split. And like I said, you can swap in raspberries, you could just do pumpkin pie spice ones, maybe add some nuts in there, make it a little festive. So as you can see, they're pretty filled up. I would say like 3/4 of the way at least. So now we are going to put these in the oven at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. And oven temperatures will vary. So I would keep an eye on them starting at 20 minutes. All right, so the muffins are browned, they're cooked, they look perfect, and it was actually 22 minutes for us, so definitely keep an eye on them, at least starting at 20. But as you can see, I mentioned, some of them will drop to the bottom, but that's okay, because, you know, it's not a mess. I'll show you. See? Not a big deal. You'll still get all those blueberries. A great thing that Matt discovered last time we made these was if you really want that, like, traditional blueberry muffin feel, he says Otis Spunkmeyer, but I say Dunkin' Donuts because Dunkin' Donuts has like the large crystals of sugar on their delicious muffins. This is what you're gonna wanna do. Take your muffin that's cooled, probably like 10 to 15 minutes. It's a little warm still, yeah. You're gonna dunk it in some granular erythritol. Look at that. Oh my God. Just do that with every single one. What do you have to lose, guys?
How's it going, guys? As always, I'll be tasting this. I'm like the official taste tester now, but this has almonds in it, so Mega can't eat it. But guys, how good do these look? This is amazing. They look so good. And I think there's 2 schools of thought on blueberry muffins. There's the people who like to mash up the blueberries and make the batter all blue, or there's the people that keep the batter nice and pristine, but you have those nice specks of blueberries like popping through like that. That's the way I like it. The muffin base, as Mega was saying, is pretty versatile. You can do whatever you want with it. Absolutely phenomenal. They taste 100% like a blueberry muffin. So blueberry muffins are just like such a classic thing. I used to always have them. Otis Spunkmeyer is my guy. I would buy the variety packs. These closely replicate those for sure. I mean, Otis's were like way bigger and they were way more delicious, but these are really good too. Serve these up to your kids, guys. They will not be able to tell the difference and they'll be attracted to them by the sparkly top. I'd store them in the fridge. They'll probably last for what, like a week, 10 days? Give these a try, guys. Let us know what you think.
Today, I am gonna show you how to make keto cinnamon rolls in 90 seconds. 90 seconds just refers to the cook time on these cinnamon rolls, but still from start to finish, these are only gonna take you about 5 minutes, maybe even a little less. Now, the reason I love this recipe so much is because usually cinnamon rolls require you to commit to eating or sharing like 6, 8, 10 cinnamon rolls. Also, cinnamon rolls usually take 45 minutes to an hour to make if you're making them from scratch. This recipe changes all that though, because we're only gonna be making one individual cinnamon roll. It's gonna have less than 5 net carbs, and from start to finish, like I said, less than 5 minutes to make this thing. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into it, make this recipe.
First things first, we're gonna get out our food scale and a small dish, and we're gonna measure out a half a tablespoon or 7 grams of unsalted butter. When we've done that, we're gonna pop that dish in the microwave for around 10-ish seconds just to quickly melt the butter, and then we're gonna get out an egg and separate the yolk from the white. So once we've got that yolk separated, we're gonna add that to a medium-sized bowl along with a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, and then we're also going to add the melted butter as well. And that's actually all the liquid ingredients to today's low-carb keto cinnamon rolls recipe. So as you're seeing here, we're just gonna quickly whisk those together until they're combined, and then we're gonna start adding the dry ingredients for our keto cinnamon roll. The first thing we're gonna add is going to be some blanched almond flour. I like to use this one from Kirkland's, and almond flour is actually the base ingredient to this cinnamon roll mug cake recipe. So having said that, we're gonna add a half a cup or 56 grams of it to our bowl. Next, we're gonna sweeten up the recipe in a totally low-carb, keto-friendly way, and we're gonna do that by using confectioner swerve. So as you're seeing here, we're gonna add 3 tablespoons or 25 grams of it to our bowl for today's recipe. By the way, do not substitute swerve with stevia because stevia is way sweeter than swerve and your keto cinnamon rolls will not turn out properly. Anyways, the next thing we're gonna add is xanthan gum, and this stuff is super important to getting the right texture and consistency of a legit cinnamon roll. And if you don't add this stuff, just expect your keto cinnamon roll to be more on the crumbly side. Having said that, a half a teaspoon of xanthan gum goes a long way, and that's what we'll be using for today's recipe. We're also gonna add a heaping quarter teaspoon of baking powder and a pinch of salt. So now at this point, we can get out our spatula and mix all of our ingredients together until a crumbly consistency forms. Once it does, we want to use our hands to form a ball of dough and collect any straggling pieces of dough off the sides of the bowl. All right, so that's looking pretty good. We're now going to get out a piece of parchment paper and add the ball of dough to it. And we're using the parchment paper because it makes it much easier to press the keto cinnamon roll dough out. And if you don't use it, the dough can be quite sticky and a pain in the butt to press out. Having said that, we want to press the dough out until it's about 8 inches long and only about 1 inch wide. It should be very thin. So when we've got something that looks like this, that's when we're going to quickly coat it with baking spray and then sprinkle some cinnamon on top of it. Last but not least, we'll want to get out some brown swerve, which is a keto-friendly substitute for brown sugar, but it has no calories and no net carbs. So like I said, it's totally keto approved, and we're going to add a half a tablespoon or 6 grams of it to make the inside filling of our keto cinnamon roll. So once we press the swerve down into the dough, we can go ahead and roll our cinnamon roll up. And don't worry if the dough cracks a little bit when you do this, because you can always just smooth it out with your fingers after it's rolled up. Now at this point, we can go ahead and get out our favorite mug. I like this one. And then we're gonna coat it with some baking spray and add our low-carb cinnamon roll to the inside of it. And when we've got that in there, we're gonna cook it in our microwave for somewhere between 60 to 90 seconds, depending on the power of our microwave. However, if you don't wanna cook your keto cinnamon roll in the microwave, it'll only take about 15 minutes in the oven at 350 degrees. And of course, when it comes out of the oven, you're gonna wanna let that cool down completely in the ramekin you cooked it in. Having said that, while the cinnamon rolls are cooling down, we'll wanna get started on making the glaze. The glaze for the keto cinnamon roll is very simple to make. All we're gonna do is add a tablespoon or 9 grams of confectioner swerve to a small dish, along with 3/4 of a teaspoon or 6 grams of heavy cream. Then we're just gonna mix those together until a thick, creamy consistency forms. Once it does, we can go ahead and add the glaze to the top of our keto cinnamon roll, and then check out how awesome this turns out. Seriously, it's so good, and I cannot wait for you guys to try it. As always, for more info on today's keto cinnamon roll mug cake recipe, check out the video description below, and I hope you like it. So today on the channel, I'm gonna show you guys how to make a low-carb, keto-friendly cinnamon sugar donut recipe that's absolutely ridiculous, guys. These donuts taste much more like a deep-fried donut that you'd get from Dunkin' Donuts or a coffee shop than a baked donut recipe, and that's because the donuts are really dense and cakey and really not what you'd expect from a baked donut recipe. They're absolutely delicious. By the way, if you don't have a donut tray, do not worry. You probably just add all the ingredients into a cake tray and make cake out of the recipe. So that being said, let's jump into this one and make these donuts, guys. All right, so first things first, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Once your oven's preheated, you want to take out a large bowl and your food scale, and you want to add 1 1/4 cups or about 120 grams of superfine almond flour to the bowl. I highly recommend Bob's Red Mill almond flour. It's just the best stuff that I found. And if you want to pick some up, there's a link to grab it in the video description below.
below. So once you've added all the almond flour, the next ingredient we're going to add is going to be 1/3 of a cup of granulated erythritol. The reason why we're sweetening the recipe up with erythritol is because it truly is a 0-calorie sweetener. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol and its net carb count is 0, so it's perfect to sweeten up any low-carb or keto recipe. The final dry ingredient we're going to add is just going to be a pinch of salt, and then we're just going to whisk all the ingredients together until they're combined, and then we're going to set that bowl aside and get out our wet ingredient bowl. So in a smaller bowl, we're going to crack and add 2 large eggs, followed by 1.5 tablespoons of melted coconut oil, as well as 2 tablespoons of unsweetened vanilla almond milk, and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So now at this point, you can get your whisk back out and start whiskifying all of your wet ingredients together until the yolks and all the other ingredients start combining, and you have this bright yellow liquidy consistency going on in the bowl. Once that does happen, you can pour the liquid ingredients into the dry ingredients, and then you want to take a spatula and work all the ingredients together until a thick batter starts to form in your bowl. So now at this point, what you want to do is coat a donut tray with some baking spray. If you don't have a donut tray, there's a link to grab one in the video description below. And then what you want to do is scoop some of your batter out of your tray with a spoon and fill up each slot just about 3/4 of the way full. Once all of the slots are 3/4 of the way full, what you want to do is pop that tray into the oven for about 15 minutes or until your donuts are looking golden brown. When that does happen, you'll want to remove them from the oven and let them cool in the tray for about 15 to 20 minutes. Once they're done cooling in the tray, you want to transfer them to a wire rack to finish cooling. And while the donuts are cooling, it's a really good time to get together your cinnamon sugar topping. And what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 to 4 tablespoons of granulated erythritol to a small dish, as well as 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Then we're just going to mix those together until they're combined. And then at this point, we're going to coat all the donuts with a little bit of baking spray and dip the tops of each donut into our cinnamon sugar topping. Once every donut is covered in cinnamon sugar, the donuts are done. And of course, as always, enjoy, guys. Alright, so that's today's keto donut recipe. I hope you guys enjoy these. If you want the full written out recipe with the metric measurements and the macros, you can find all that stuff in the video description below. Also down there will be links to all the products that I used to make the donuts today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next recipe. All right, so we are doing another keto ice cream recipe on the channel. A few weeks ago, we did a chocolate keto ice cream recipe. If you missed that one, I'll put a link to it in the video description below. But today, I am showing you how to make vanilla keto ice cream. This recipe is ridiculously easy. There's only 4 ingredients. Each scoop only has 2 net carbs. And maybe the best part of all is that you don't even need an ice cream maker to make it. All you need is a mason jar. Like I said, just a few ingredients to make this stuff. It is so good. I cannot wait for you guys to try it. With that being said, let's jump right into the recipe, make some keto ice cream.
So the first thing we'll want to do is get out our food scale. That way we can weigh out the ingredients as accurately as possible. Then, as you're seeing here, we're going to get out a wide mouth mason jar and add that to the scale. At this point, we're ready to start adding the ingredients for our vanilla keto ice cream. And the base of this low carb ice cream is heavy cream. So we're going to add 1 cup or 235 milliliters of it to our mason jar. And once we've added that, we want to get out some pure vanilla extract to add a little vanilla flavor to our keto ice cream. And we're just going to add a teaspoon of it for today's recipe. Speaking of vanilla flavor, we're actually going to use some real vanilla beans in today's keto ice cream recipe, and this is what's actually going to add most of the vanilla flavoring to our vanilla ice cream. It's so good adding this. So what we want to do is use a paring knife to split open 1/4 of the bean, and then we're going to run the edge of the knife down the bean to extract all the seeds. Once we've got those extracted, we can go ahead and add those to the mason jar. But if you don't want to use real vanilla beans in your ice cream because they are kind of expensive, a good substitute can be a 1/2 scoop or 15 grams of vanilla protein powder. And actually, I just did this the other day. I used the 0-carb vanilla protein powder from Isopure, and my vanilla keto ice cream still turned out awesome. With that being said, the last thing we'll want to do is sweeten up our vanilla keto ice cream. And of course, we'll want to do this in a totally keto-friendly way without adding any carbs or calories. And my favorite way to do this in pretty much all my recipes is by using confectioner's swirl. Anyways, for today's keto mason jar ice cream recipe, we want to add 3 tablespoons or 24 grams of it to our jar. Once we've added that to the jar, we want to screw the top onto it, vigorously shake the mason jar until the cream thickens up and basically doubles in size. and this is probably going to take about 3 to 5 minutes. It is kind of a workout, but it's also totally worth it. Eventually though, the cream does thicken up, and that's when you want to freeze the mason jar for around 4 to 5 hours. So once we've given our keto ice cream time to freeze, we can remove it from the freezer, unscrew the top, scoop some of that deliciousness out, and of course, as always, enjoy it and check out just how creamy this stuff is.
So the last thing I want to tell you guys is my number one pro tip when it comes to making this keto ice cream or any of my keto ice cream recipes, and that is it is best served the day that you make it. So if you let this ice cream freeze for 8 hours or more, let's say you let it freeze for a few days, it can get really hard, harder than normal ice cream can get. And if you do that, what you want to do, take it out of your freezer, let it set at room temperature for up to a half hour depending on how hard the ice cream has become, and then just check on it every 5 to 10 minutes to see if it's softened up enough and the creaminess has returned to the ice cream so that you can enjoy it. Just wait until it softens up. That being said, I hope you guys enjoy this keto ice cream recipe, and I will see you in the next one. Hey, what's happening guys? Today we are making the best easy, fudgy, low-carb keto brownies you're ever gonna make. And this keto brownie recipe is perfect if you struggle with portion control like I do, because this recipe only makes 2 keto brownies. So there's no temptation of having an entire batch of brownies laying around your house if you make this recipe. That said, let's get right into it and I'll show you how to make the best easy keto brownies.
Alright, so as always, the first thing we're going to do is get out our food scale, and then we're also going to get out a medium-sized bowl. Now, as you're seeing here, the first thing we're going to add to that bowl is 2 tablespoons or 28 grams of cut up salted butter. Now I want to take out some keto chocolate chips, and as a lot of you guys know, I love these semi-sweetened ones from Lily's. Not only are they delicious, but they also have 0 net carbs. Anyways, for today's keto brownie recipe, I want to add around 2 tablespoons or 21 grams of those chocolate chips. So once we've added those to the bowl, I want to melt the butter and chocolate chips together, and just about 20 to 30 seconds in the microwave should do the trick, or you can melt them together in a pot on the stove. Now at this point, we're going to take a spatula and mix the butter and chocolate chips together until a chocolate sauce forms. And then to make these low-carb keto brownies extra fudgy and extra ooey gooey, we'll want to add another 3/4 of a tablespoon or 7 grams of those keto chocolate chips, and then mix those into the sauce as well. Next, we're going to add the main ingredient for these keto brownies, and that's almond flour. So for today's keto brownie recipe, we're going to add just less than a half a cup or 50 grams of almond flour to our bowl. And then we're going to sweeten up our brownies in a totally keto-friendly, sugar-free way by using confectioner swerve. That said, we'll want to add around 2.5 tablespoons or 20 grams of that stuff to make today's low-carb keto brownie recipe. So once that's taken care of, we're going to add even more chocolatey deliciousness to these keto brownies by adding a tablespoon or 5 grams of dark unsweetened cocoa powder. Now we're all set to mix the ingredients together until a crumbly consistency forms in the bowl, and once that happens, we can use our hands to form a ball of brownie dough. So as you're seeing here, we're going to add half of the dough to a small plate and start forming the shape of a brownie out of the dough. When that's looking pretty good, you can totally eat these as a no-bake brownie, or you can warm them up in either the microwave for about 20 to 30 seconds, or add them to a baking sheet and bake them in the oven for around 5 minutes at 350 degrees. And then check this out. Look how much ooey gooey fudgy keto brownie deliciousness each one of these has. And as always guys, check out the video description below for more info on today's easy keto brownie recipe.
Keto flan is what's on the menu today, and some of you guys might know this as keto custard or keto pudding, depending on where you're from, but I think we all can agree to just call this delicious because it's basically creme brulee with a caramel sauce on top. That's what flan is. So with that said, of course, we are going to be making a flan that is totally low carb and totally keto friendly, and actually the entire thing is just going to have 2 grams of carbs. I know. Tough to believe, but it's true. With that said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the good stuff. Make some low-carb keto flan, custard, pudding, creme brulee with caramel sauce.
All right, the first thing we're going to make is our caramel sauce. So as you're seeing here, we're going to add 1/3 cup or 80 milliliters of water to a small pot. Then we're going to add a heaping 1/4 cup or about 60 grams of granulated swerve to our pot. And this, of course, is how we're going to sweeten up the sauce for our keto flan without adding any net carbs or calories. So once we've added that, we're going to get our pot situated on a burner set to medium-high heat, and then we're going to whisk those ingredients together until the sweetener dissolves into the water. Now, eventually, this mixture is going to start boiling, and when it does, we'll want to add 2 heaping tablespoons or 32 grams of butter to it. Then, when we've added that, we're going to whisk everything together until the butter breaks down. So, once that happens, we're going to let the sauce continue to boil and only whisk it occasionally. That said, eventually the sauce for our keto flan will start to darken in color. It's going to start to look more dark tannish, and when that happens, we can cut off the heat from our burner and remove our pot from it. Now, as you're seeing here, we're going to pour that caramel sauce evenly into 3 8-ounce ramekins. Then, when we've done that, we're going to transfer them to a large casserole dish and fill the dish about halfway up with hot water. Okay, so now that we've got that situated, we're going to crack and add 2 large eggs to a small dish, along with an additional egg yolk. Then, we're going to use a fork to whisk our eggs until the yolks combine with the whites. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to set that aside, preheat our oven to 350 degrees, and start working on making the custard part of our keto flan. That said, the first thing we want to do is add 1 cup or 240 milliliters of heavy cream to a medium-sized bowl. Then, to sweeten up the custard to our keto flan, we're going to add 1/3 cup or 50 grams of confectioner's swerve to the bowl. And then for a little added flavor, we're going to pour in a heaping teaspoon or 6 grams of some pure vanilla extract. Now we can give those ingredients a quick whisk until they combine, and then when they do, we can start to slowly pour and whisk in the egg mixture that we assembled earlier. So once we've incorporated that into our cream and the other ingredients, we can transfer it into a more pourable cup. Then, when we've done that, we can pour our keto flan custard evenly between the 3 ramekins we prepared earlier. So, when that looks good, we can go ahead and add our dish to the oven and bake our keto flan for about 35 to 40 minutes. You'll know the flan is done once the outer ring of it is set and the middle is just ever so slightly jiggly. So, once that's the case, we'll want to pull it out from the oven and let it cool down in the dish. Then, when it's had a chance to cool, we can run a knife around the edge of the flan to loosen it from the ramekin. Now, once it's loose, we'll place a plate on top of the ramekin and flip our keto flan over onto the plate. And after you've done that, you'll have yourself a delicious keto flan, keto custard, or keto pudding, depending on what you refer to this as, with a delicious caramel topping. Oh yeah, and check this out, the consistency on this stuff is absolutely perfect. Anyways, as always, for more info on today's low-carb keto flan recipe, check out the video description below, and I hope you like it.